Welcome or welcome back. I've been really dying to go apartment hunting, even though I'm still really early out on my lease, unfortunately, but I did want to make it a whole video and like bring you guys with me, show you how I search for my apartments, and hopefully give you some tips that can help. Now this is mainly for my first time apartment renters, but if you already know your way around, just at least stick with me to where I show y'all my favorite apps and websites, because you gotta be able to at least take one thing from it. So January is almost over, and like I said, we are 1 month closer to the end of my lease, which is really exciting, but it's also really stressing me out because as soon as you're past like the apartment hunting stage and you have to start collecting your pay stubs, and oh girl, that's when it gets overwhelming. So let's chat about a obvious but really important part of your apartment search: the location. The area that I'm looking to stay in is pretty close to where I am now. It's just a little suburb like south of Metro Atlanta, and we're really lucky to not work in like downtown Atlanta where traffic sucks. But even here, the traffic can still get really bad. So if you've already considered like the commute that you're willing to take, definitely take that into consideration. I know some of us don't really have the luxury of being able to choose a place to live based off of the commute to work, but at least consider amenities in the area, because you might as well have something to look forward to when you come home. So the next, probably most crucial part of this is your budget, because unless you live in the middle of nowhere, your rent is likely to be steep. Like a lot of times it'll be completely unreasonable. A lot of these traditional like financial gurus or advisors are going to tell you to keep your rent or mortgage at least 30% and below of the income that you bring. Now that is great in theory. Nowadays, you're lucky to even find something that's not over 50% of your income. If you look in the market and kind of just research how much rent is in the area that you're looking, and you don't make 3 times that amount a month, I would definitely consider looking into like a roommate or a co-signer. Now, if you don't know what I mean by 3 times, a lot of times apartments will ask you to bring in a certain amount of income a month to even be approved for a unit. Most of the time, they're gonna ask you for 3 times the rent. The only time that I've seen like 2 or 2.5 times is like rental homes of private owners putting up their homes for rent, or like really like low income areas of cities sometimes will have like 2 times the rent, I've noticed. And it sucks because a lot of these homes and apartments are owned by these really big corporations that don't even want to negotiate rent with you. If you can't afford it, that's great. If you can't, I would definitely suggest roommate or co-signer. I love just sitting in my bed rotting, scrolling through Zillow, apartment websites. So one you probably already know of is Zillow, but I use the rental app, the Zillow Rentals. This one is more useful if you're looking more into a home like I am, because it really doesn't populate that many apartments, but it is great because you're able to save the search filters, and it also sends you emails of any sort of homes that pop up in your area. This next one is a classic. I have to admit, I don't really use it that often. I don't like the way it feels. I feel like I don't get the most smooth experience on it either, but it still has really great filters and search options. This is apartments.com. It still has everything you need, so don't just take my word for it and completely skip over it. Personally, I just don't really use it that often. Now, apartmentlist.com is great. If not my favorite, it's up there on my list. When you first open the website or the app version, whichever one you're on, it's gonna ask you some really great questions. And from there, they're gonna create a list of rentals, and you can either like downvote, maybe there's a maybe button, or you can love it, and it'll continue to narrow the search down based off of the properties that you liked or didn't like. Sometimes it'll show you rentals that aren't really within your search or don't really have all the amenities that you want, but I actually really like that feature because I found some real gems that I wouldn't have considered or even looked at if it wasn't for apartmentlist.com. The last one I want to mention is more of an interactive one, and it's also more like home rental based like Zillow is. Rently. It is so fun to drive around and find rentals to just tour, and it's so great if you don't want to be touring an agent-led tour, and it really does not take long to start. Me and my boyfriend love just spending like a day visiting a million different houses. You will have to pay. It's only a few dollars for like a certain amount of tours, or like a amount of tours that you want to do, but to me it's so worth it. I do want to mention that most of the homes that are on Rently are like owned by the big companies like Progress Residential, Tricon, Main Street Renewal, those big ones, in case that is something that you're not wanting to deal with or something that you're looking for. When you found a unit that you're considering, a little tip that I do think will give you a little bit of insight is to drive by at night. Mostly everyone is going to be home by 7 o'clock at night, and this is where you can see how packed or how empty that parking lot is. If you already see yourself getting frustrated with the parking situation or how many cars are going in and out, that might be a sign for you. Or if the parking lot is empty and no one lives there, that's also a sign. Quick note before we move on to applying: when you're physically touring, please make sure you take a video of the unit that you're touring, because sometimes you get totally blinded by like the excitement and the nerves, especially if it's your first time moving into a new apartment. You'll like miss things, and then you'll sign a lease on an apartment with no overhead lighting, no ceiling fans anywhere. Literally, this is what happened to me and my boyfriend. We signed a lease on an apartment that does not have lighting on in any of the rooms besides closets, bathrooms, and the kitchen. That's it. No lighting in the living room, no lighting in the bedrooms. It's actually insane to me that we let this happen. So don't be like us, taking a trip to Walmart the first night that we moved in because we realized that light switch doesn't turn on a light because there is no light. Where's the light? When it comes to applying, you're more than likely gonna have to pay an application fee. Pretty sure that's like standard everywhere. Now these can range between like 20 bucks, 200 bucks, depends on how much these places want to charge. Definitely watch for specials. Usually like at the end of the year through the beginning of the year, apartments will run specials where they take off like $500 off, or maybe they give you a month or two free of rent. Some of them will also maybe waive the application fee or the admin fee. Before you apply, really consider checking in on an apartment. Check on their website, because a lot of times the rent will change monthly depending on how the demand is or the market. Sometimes you'll check in the middle of the summer, then by the end of the year the rent has gone down almost $400. But 100% make sure you are checking that apartment for rates every single day, just so you can at least, maybe not every single day, but every week or two, couple weeks, most every month, because sometimes you can definitely catch an apartment at a super low rate. But after you do apply, they are going to ask for a security deposit, and this is where most of your fees come in. If you do not have the minimum credit score that they're asking for, they are going to charge you usually like 1 month's rent. I've seen people have to pay like first and last month's rent, which is insane for a freaking security deposit, but they'll make you pay that on top of the like $300 that they ask you to put down with like a normal average or good credit score. This can really hurt your pockets, which is why I do again recommend checking in every so often just to see if you can get the lowest rate on your unit. Another quick piece of advice: if you get paid hourly and it's possible in your situation, try your best not to take off a substantial amount of time before you apply, because they are going to ask for pay stubs. If you get paid hourly, it's kind of hard to prove that you make what you normally make if you took off like a month or a few weeks in that period of time. Now it is time for me to lecture y'all just a little bit, especially my viewers who are moving into a first apartment. You do not need the nicest, fanciest, white cabinet, marble countertop apartment. I promise you. It is what you make of that space that matters. You can always decorate a space and make it look a million times better. There's renter friendly decorations and upgrades that you can do. There's so many on YouTube that you can look up right now. Just be really careful with those peel and stick wallpapers. Sometimes those can get you. Also, please be very careful if you're buying furniture, especially secondhand, sofas, chairs, mattresses. If you're buying a mattress secondhand, please bring something with you to check for bed bugs, because you do not want to bring that into your apartment. Bed bugs suck. Please make sure you thoroughly check that piece of furniture before you buy it. That doesn't mean don't buy anything secondhand though. Like my couch right now, I bought for $500 off of Facebook Marketplace. My dining table, I actually refinished it. I got it at a Goodwill for I think like 50 bucks. All I'm saying is that you do not need a super expensive fancy apartment for your first. Just be patient, because it took me 2 years to get to a point where I'm like okay with how my apartment looks, and we're already moving. So hopefully these tips helped at least one person out there. I really appreciate everyone that did stay to the end of this video. If you have any tips or extra advice that you want to share or stories, feel free to leave them in my comments, and I'll see you all in my next video.